our major sort of challenge with these projects has really been getting our time and resources to be on the ground. Now, I travel a lot, and the other trustees also have full-time jobs. So they have a 9 to 5, and then basically have been running Africa Rising, not 100% full-time. And hence we felt it very necessary for us to have a meeting in order to then get people involved, whether it be on a volunteer level or a membership level, and really get this organization off the ground. So if we look at this year, moving away from projects, we haven't really done much as far as the projects are concerned, but really focusing more on getting the financials, the budget, because once we have the budget, we'll be able to then raise the money that we need to then get these projects off the ground. Now, before you even start any programs at any of the schools, our idea was to build a central location that all the schools in the surrounding areas can actually come and access, instead of having a computer center, for example, at each school, which would be a lot more expensive. And what we realized is that before you go into the programming, you actually to fix the actual physical infrastructure of the schools, because a lot of them, that is their major issue. So you're talking about toilets, desks, chairs, doors, windows, chalkboards. Things get broken and they don't really get fixed, and they don't have the budget to get fixed. And the municipalities are also struggling because of budget constraints, etc., etc. So, aside from programming and providing computers and excellent teachers and training the teachers and other adults in the community to give them the best sort of tools, you need to actually fix the physical infrastructure, because that will give them the pride in their school. To say that I'm proud, my school is this way, and not really being a place where it really entrenches that sort of what can I say, that that poor mentality basically that they expect, that they have, that they live with at school. Want school to be a place of pride, where they look forward to it, and even have food programs if necessary for the kids in that area. So I've talked to you now about the education project, which is going to be kicking off in the Eastern Cape. The other project we're looking at is more of a media project. The media project is called the African Dream. The African Dream campaign is where we're going to be basically taking 10 influential people per city. So we'll take 10 in Johannesburg, 10 in Cape Town, and then interview them, give them a brief, and say, what is their dream for Africa in the next 2 generations to come? So as an artist, who's a musician, what is your dream for Africa? As a banker, what is your dream for Africa? As a student, what is your dream for Africa? And just go across different areas and use that as then creating a conversation with the broader community using social media to talk about what are the challenges that we as youth face, and how do we feel we can change it, or what is the solution? And so we want to release that on a weekly basis and then create the conversation. So for example, if we have 10 in Joburg and 10 in Cape Town, we'll then be able to release 1 a week and create a conversation around that, which will be the first phase. Second phase will be then going to other African countries, African cities, and getting another 10 in those countries, and really just creating that conversation so the whole continent becomes part of one conversation. For us, it's really important, because it also starts to show that African people are starting to control their own narrative that exists on Africa, and we're not allowing CNN or BBC or other people to talk about what's really happening on the ground. Giving African people their own opportunities to talk about Africa, so Americans, Asians can actually see what African people are thinking on the ground, and not just from a government perspective, because most of the time it's either the government or big business, that you get to hear from, but you never get to hear from students. You never get to hear from people that are sitting on the corner begging. You never get to hear from the nurse, who works at Joburg Gen, so that's the idea of getting the African media campaign, to give people voices across the board. not the ones that we've been typically been hearing from. Then we have a third project, but this one is more led by the American team. By the way, we do have a representative in New York, and they go by the name of the Rye Group, which is two sisters, Alexis and Jerica. And they basically came up with a project called Grow Mandela. We're having technical issues, as you can see, but I would have been able to link this up on our projector so for everyone can see. But basically, this program it takes American people, and the idea is to get celebrities as well from NFL, which already have a link with the NFL, the football, American football, get NBA stars as well, and WNBA stars, together with normal people who are interested in coming over to Africa. We're going to bring them over to South Africa and create a 10-day sort of program for them. And 3 of those days, they'll be in the Eastern Cape working on an agricultural project called Grow Mandela. And the idea is for them to then, obviously, again, it's a cultural exchange program where they engage with the community. But it won't, like I said, it will only be 3 days where they're actually doing proper work on the ground. And then the other 7 days will be then experiencing the rest of the country. So maybe they go to Cape Town, maybe they do a safari, maybe they go to Durban. But then obviously in each of those areas, there will be African representatives that go with them, and also each area that they go to, they will be engaging with different communities and getting a sense and a feel of what everyday people are like in those areas, and perhaps even go to one school, one university, and engage with students as well, and just get a cross-cultural thing, because the biggest issue, I believe, between African people in general is that we don't communicate. Hence, we have the media campaign, is to get African people to communicate to each other. Me as a South African, I don't know what's happening in Angola. He doesn't know what's happening in Botswana. He doesn't know what's happening in Nigeria, etc. As young people who have aspirations to start businesses, and that's the whole thing, is to build bridges so we can, kill these gaps that exist between African Americans and Africans. There's Africans as well in China. There's Africans in Europe. There's Africans in Brazil. Brazil actually has the most amount of Africans outside of Africa. The population of Brazil is 200 million. 52% of that is African, which means there's 100 million Africans in Brazil alone. And a lot of us don't even know that. So we need to be creating those bridges between South Africa and the rest of African people around the world. And not just African people. We're talking about people who are interested in the general development of the continent. Because sometimes we know that there's a lack of knowledge, or maybe there's a lack of skills that the Western world have. Hence, it becomes very important for us to have those partnerships, because we can leverage those relationships, and bring them. So, for example, a kid will come and say, hey, Ndaba, I've always wanted to be a quantity surveyor. And I'm like, me, I'm not a quantity surveyor. But there's a relationship that I have with Amherst College, for example, where they take their lecturers and they send them to, here for a period of 2 months, and engage with the kids and, find out what is the best way to actually go about him becoming an actual science, or what is the information that he needs. So Africa Rising is really a conduit, an in-betweener between, those who are trying to get from A to B, basically, and find the right people with the resources, with the knowledge, with the skills to be able to bridge that gap. So, that's really what Africa Rising is. We've been very lucky. We've been very blessed to have the relationships that we have, be able to travel and create our own networks of people who are really interested in assisting young people on the ground for them to control their own destiny. And that is really the big picture. Linking up young African people so they can really, achieve their dreams, whatever they may be, in whatever field they may be. Just what's next here? Sorry, guys. So, some of the things that we actually want to establish in this organization, because I said right now we have a lack of capacity. We need to have a fundraising committee. We need to have a marketing committee, which will marketing and communications will go hand in hand, as well as PR. Then we also need to have a writers committee. Now, in America, they have a number of different publications that talk about African issues and African challenges. Now, us as Africa Rising, we want to be one of the key sort of organizations that people look to whenever there are issues that arise in Africa. So, for example, when there's Ebola, what does Africa Rising have to say about Ebola? When there was Bring Back the Girls in Nigeria, what does Africa Rising? People must go to the website and say, hey, what is Africa Rising saying about this? And in order for that to happen, we need to maintain and establish ourselves as a credible voice on the continent. And for that, we will need people who love writing, who are good at writing, who will then be part of this sort of writing committee. And at least we should be publishing one article a month. And as time goes by, we will have our own newsletter, which we can then obviously infiltrate, not just to our physical members, but virtual members, everybody that's really in our network that we can distribute this to. We also have partners like the Young African Leaders Network, and they have already just under 1 million members online. So there's a captive audience that already exists. And then finally, we'll also want to have a management committee. Obviously, the management committee will then be managing the different committees, fundraising, marketing, writing, as well as how information is then fed from the working groups who are working in committees to the working group captain, and then from the captain basically reporting to the board, and then the board being able to then make the decisions and release whatever resources is needed to make those things carry out, to be implemented on the ground, basically. And we also want to have a very strong membership or volunteer base, not just in South Africa, but across the continent as well. We have Mr. Moloketi here today with us, who I've been working with, and he has got a number of ideas, or an idea in which he feels he can add a lot of value and garnering membership, not just in South Africa, but talking about global membership for the organization. I'd like for him to give us his idea as to how he sees us going through this. Also, as far as marketing and communications, Yannick is going to be in charge of that. So he'll be working together with the marketing committee because currently he's in charge of communications at the moment. And then I also want you to know Latoria, who was very kind to come from Cape Town. She's also worked with us. She's an American lady whose background is in archaeology traditionally. But she's very passionate about the vision, about the organization, and she's come on board to really help us grow the organization. And then we'll also have Paul Nkosi here, who handles basically the finances. So we have 25 schools in the Gulu area, which is both primary, nursery, and high school, which will want to service the resource center. And we need to be able to fix all of these schools so that they're in a proper physical condition. Starting off with toilets, desks, chairs, etc. And we decided we're going to do 5 schools a year because obviously we don't have money for days. So we have already chosen 5 schools that we'll be working with, and he's almost done with the budget. And once we're done with that budget, then we're going to take it and put it together with the budget now to run programs and to train people and to have facilitators, etc. And once you have that, then you have a proper budget that you can actually take now to corporate sponsors, which already have a list of people who are interested in coming on board. But more than anything, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you feel Africa Rising should be doing? And where would you like to assist us, or what role would you like to play? Africa Rising. It's clear that you obviously do care about the development of the youth. You are here today, you've taken your time out, and we really appreciate that. So we don't want just to talk to you. It must be a conversation that we're here for. So guys, please don't be shy to ask questions, to make comments, and I'll give you the floor now to speak with us, guys.
Start with his,
start with.
All right. So essentially, my name is Salomzi Moleketi. I currently work for Motif Records, an independent record label based here in South Africa. My prior experience is with Vonvo.com. I think people know Vonvo.com, maybe no introduction. But essentially, Ndaba, the first time I sat down with Africa Rising, Ndaba told me about this African Dream project. And for me, that seemed as though that was such a brilliant dialogue that could easily take the world by storm. However, as of late, I've found myself, since working for the music industry, I found myself really trying to understand what really is a trend? How do these conversations take off to the point that they become global conversations? Because a lot of people, radio stations do it all day where they're like, all right, we're going to tweet this hashtag, let's try get it trending all over, and it falls flat on its face, or it generally just doesn't have the capacity that you really want it to. Now, through the use of various social media sites, I've learned that you can do something very different in terms of starting a conversation like this. What I had in mind for this African Dream in terms of the digital space is turning Africa Rising, the site, into more of a hub. Which, firstly, if you've noticed the site, it does gather emails and such. So the hub in itself will grow the mailing list, which will then build on the later newsletters and such publications that we would be pushing out. But to turn this into a hub, we need to have the conversation around and behind it. So from these social media skits, I learned that a lot of people in Africa, a lot of our phones, first and foremost, do not cater for the digital trends that are going on globally at the moment. So we have to use very different tactics. So when we present episodes, or be it vocal recordings and such, of people having such conversations, we can't go with the classical YouTube or SoundCloud. We have to go for a data file host, because also here in Africa, we like to own data more than we like to stream it, because when we see streaming, we see letting go of something that you could have had. Whereas when your data runs out, you want to have it the entire time. Also, around that, I've been looking at modern techniques of sharing. So there's a current application that's called FireChat. A lot of people don't really know about this yet, but it's slowly taking the world by storm. What FireChat does is it uses your phone's Bluetooth capabilities to set up our lessons. We'll get it across the continent faster than we would if we simply left it in the cloud and waited for it to share itself. For the global side of the conversation, we then take all the statistics we have based on what we've done using these data-friendly, I would call them, techniques, and then share them across and be like, listen, this is what Africa is talking about. You know this because we've got these numbers, we've got this proof. Now, how do you feel about what we're sharing? So that the conversation truly does originate on the continent and is then shared, as opposed to it being shared by everyone else before it gets to us. This is still, of course, an ongoing conversation we're having and such, but I feel as though it's possibly the future.
Just some support systems, like you're saying, but it needs to be in the community as well as at the school. Because when I went to the school, they said to me, I threatened him. I told him I'm going to tell your coach everything about you. You know, there's more intimidation, there's no support. So what happens is, by the time they get to secondary school, even if they're completing secondary school, the academic results are so poor. The quality of knowledge, we've got, I wanted to actually mention this T-shirt because as part of your marketing as well, we had supporters from our Facebook page that come from Scotland that started up this T-shirt, I Support Growing Champions. They liked what we were doing, and they started off this initiative where it's a traveling T-shirt. So what happens is people go into different landmarks around the world. They take the shirt, they wear it, they take a photo, say it's they're into Camp Nou in Barcelona. They post it on the social media, like Facebook, and they give us some background. So our boys get a knowledge base, history and geography. They went to Martin Luther King's places in Africa, in America. They've given us so much through support, but that's also part of membership. So you create something that's people have a voice, but they've become part of the care mechanism for Africa. So there's so much that can be done to move us forward. But I think, even in the communities where you're going into the Eastern Cape and you're talking about all these renovations that you've got to do, is looking at people's passions. I think that's what the key is here.
Yeah.
Is finding in your community what are the people's passions, and then asking them to share that passion.
Yeah.
What can they commit to in their passion? If they're carpentry, they can come and do the desks for you. And they may even be able to teach one or two of the secondary students carpentry skills, and you can start to grow it. Then they've done something for their school or for their primary school, or they've given back to their community. As part of Growing Champions, we do a lot of outreach ourselves, even though we are in youth development. Our boys come from an environment of drugs and gangs and poverty. But we go and for example, every year we do the Gift of the Givers race, the marathon, township marathon, and we raise funds for Reach for a Dream for children who are fighting for life-threatening conditions and they want a dream granted. So it's about connecting and knowing that you've still got power, even if you're in a difficult situation, your power is not gone. So it's looking at passions. I think that's the key. And that's what we'd like to offer you, actually. That's what I always wanted to say as well. You asked what could we add. Obviously a project in the Eastern Cape is too far for us to reach, to go and paint, classrooms or whatever. But if you bring projects this side, or if there is something that is the smaller projects that you have going here, as part of service and leadership, we'd love to take part in actually doing something physically to contribute to communities. Okay.
I don't know if I can maybe add on. Paul is also part of a very successful NGO called Maths Tech, which does these same type of things. Maybe Paul can add on to that.
Actually, we started it was around 2006 in Soweto, which was Orlando and Pimville, and then we grew up until Heidelberg. We've got now we're sitting 120 students from grade 11 to grade 12, which would participate in the program where we tutor them maths and science every Saturday and Sunday. Like today, the class starts like 9 to 11, but now they're writing. What do we normally do? We go beyond teaching maths only, where we going more to social issues, finding out what their needs and what they want to do and what is their future, what actually they're looking for after completing matric. Because we find sometimes you'll do maths, but if you don't have a vision what you want to be, you'll never even pass that maths. Even you can pass that maths, but you don't know what you're going to do. When you give them the background where they participate, even to go on open days when like at university and get listen to children, whether you normally see if you want to be a civil engineer, you attend one class of a civil engineer, meet a civil engineer, go to a site and find out what is actually a civil engineer, or you want to be like a surveyor, and you must know exactly what surveyor does, because these kids, they watch too much TV. Then you'll find something.
Yeah. But what about going into companies with an Africa Rising shirt and asking them to take a photo of themselves at their business or their building site or whatever, and writing a paragraph, which would go onto your website. This is what it is to be a curious.
Yes.
This is what made me passionate about doing this is me. So it's also about you, an African, speaking about Africa, but also giving your passion. And then people have got access, because that's one of my things with these guys, and you're welcome to speak, boys, at any point. But for me, it's about not knowing what's out there. How do you dream about something that you don't even know exists? The only environment you know is your home space, and there's not much going on there that's productive. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then Nick, I think, was doing the website. Then it's what under Africa Rising we like to offer. Especially, like, for example, we're supposed to do to run a program in Tuni. Then Ndaba said no. But basically, there's no infrastructure, there's nothing. For example, I can read this letter when they sent it to Ndaba. It was requesting of a school building, Kandoga's SPS in Tuni. The Above Mission School, which is located in Tuni administrative area, humble request that it be considered as a priority. The school starts from grade R to grade 7 and is properly aligned with the South African primary school. The school is currently accommodating 450 learners. There is absolutely no building. There are no classrooms, no library. no laboratory, no staff rooms, no even sick bay for kids, no principal office. And then there's no school, which means. But when I find out, because when I was reading this, there was no building, so there's no building, which means why I'm going to look for a school. But it's when I started realizing that, which means there's trees, which means there's kids under the trees. There's no desk, they sit down. This is in South Africa, it's happening. And there's a shed where I think the principal changing files. There's one rentables, that's what they're saying here. You understand? Which means even you can come up with programs such as math and science project, but you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve because there's absolutely nothing.
And you've got to engage the person with the vision as well. Like you're saying, they've got to know where's maths going to take them.
Yes.
That's first. Where am I going to go in life? Then I'm going to fight for that path. But if I don't understand that path, I'm not going to fight.
But here's the question: for an NGO like Africa Rising, who doesn't have money for days, would taking on that kind of project be helpful in the grand scheme of things? You know, like having to basically build a school from scratch instead of, like I said, focusing. And this is a primary school as well, so then you also have to worry about where do these kids go after, instead of focusing on the secondary education and then working your way backwards. I'm just curious, like, would this be a project that you guys would be looking to
We would be. I mean, we obviously not going to pay for it ourselves. We're a conduit, so we have access to pretty much everybody in the corporate world and the private sector. So, you know, and there are actually corporations that are looking to build schools, but they don't know where. They don't have the information. So that's why we act as the middle person to say, guys, here's the schools, build here. Here's the schools, build here. This way the budget needs to be going. You know, so it's not really a difficult thing, and we need to have that. I mean, that's not secondary, that's primary.
that is
grade
primary,
R to
that's what
7.
I'm saying, yeah.
With no primary, you're not going to get to secondary.
But the amount of people in South Africa who do go to primary is about 90%. So who at least start primary.
Yeah, it's like the chicken or the egg, though. I mean, how do you have to tackle both, unfortunately.
So when you look at projects like that, like I'll give an example with regards to Paul's NGO. You have to find a partner that already has a budget that they put out towards these type of things. And through that budget, you're able to tell them, like Ndaba said, here's the area you need to focus in and go in on that. So, I mean, what's the construction company you partnered with?
Pareto Limited.
Pareto Limited. So they fund him with actual physical cash that he's able to now plug back in to areas that actually need it most. So where Africa Rising would come in is we'll start the groundwork and find out exactly where that budget should go. And from there, you find the partner who's already got a budget, because most of these corporate companies do have budgets for this, but they don't know where to put it in. So being that middleman, you're able to find the common ground and get these projects started. I mean, it is also a big responsibility. You don't just take these things on and then immediately assume you can change them. So you have to pace yourself so that you can be able to deliver at the end of the day. Projects like these are not just things that you take on because, yes, there's need. There's need everywhere, but you need to pace yourself real carefully. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else can log on to like the internet right now with their phones. Now, what we're doing here is we've got our partners in the States and around the world who are actually joining the conversation through something called Vonvo. So if you log on to that, you're able to join the live stream of the conversation, make comments on there. So it's a new partnership that we're trying out to see if if there's anybody else around the globe who wants to start joining these kind of meetings, they can also have inputs. So it's like your T-shirts, but a bit more, one up, where they can actually be able to see us directly. Yeah. So the website is Vonvo.com, and then you'll find you'll have to set up a username, and then after that you join the conversation in the Africa Rising organization. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there was even a Scottish organization that contacted me recently. They're building a school in Puno. So there are many people, it's not just in South Africa, but around the world, who want to do good things, but they don't have credible people who can actually assist them and say, guys, this is what we need, because they're afraid, hey, if we give these guys the money, where is it going to go? Is it actually going to go to building a school? So, that's why we need to have a solid organization, with the fundraising committee, with marketing writers, etc. Because once people can see that these guys are really there to represent the youth, a lot more resources will come our way, and we'll be able to do a lot more work. And also, we need members, because I cannot do everything alone. Paul cannot do everything alone. Hence, we call a general meeting. And starting next year, February, we're actually going to have a general meeting every month, to get more people engaged and get more volunteers. Because, yes, we are in Joburg and our projects are in Kuno. So what is it that we can get people in Johannesburg to do? What events can we do here as we are here today, to get the message out there that Africa Rising, Growing a Champion are working together to building the next generation of African leaders, So those are the things that we'll also need to get a discussion with as well. And I do not have all the ideas, I have access to people who can assist us in terms of resources. And I'm trying to just channel the energy that we have as youth, so we can really channel it towards one thing and not be all over the show and align each other with each other, But that's pretty much what it's all about, Is there anyone with yes?
When I went on to hi, I'm Google, by the way. When I went onto the website and read about Africa Rising, and the question was posed as to what can you do, what you can add value. I'm a professional dancer. I do ballet and contemporary hip hop, Spanish tap. So what I've been trying to do within the community of Alexandra is build a dance academy. So due to lack of resources, lack of funding, it hasn't come together. However, I've been to a lot of schools where there isn't infrastructure, where there's problems facing, very similar to schools in Tunu. But what there is dance is alive. Everybody has some sort of passion to dance, whether it be hip hop, whether it be contemporary, Spanish, tap. And I feel with the Black generation, they haven't been exposed to, especially ballet. It's still a very aristocrat, almost white ideal that hasn't been given over. And with regards to that, as a cultural aspect, if we could train people to become qualified at such things, they could actually get a skill and end up teaching as well. And through teaching, they could open their own dance studios, or they could also make their own money from teaching. So from my side, when I looked at how I could add value, obviously we have bigger problems like infrastructure, maths and science and whatnot. But the cultural aspect keeps people off the streets, keeps people busy. There's choreography, there's events. So I feel on my side, I could definitely incorporate dance and arts and culture.
I think that's very valuable in terms of our resource center. We don't want people just to come and read and learn and teach each other and play PlayStation, but people can come and dance. Yeah, so it needs to be a resource center that attracts people for all reasons. People want to come there because they're tired of doing nothing. They actually want to learn something. Something that they actually passionate about. Because ultimately, like you said, it's about passion. And we may not all be passionate about soccer. We may not all be passionate about becoming an engineer. People have different skills.
But also is that you have to feed the person first. It's the person before anything they do. And your kind of industry in dance is so healthy for the body, for the mind. Our people are very stressed in this day and age. Seriously, because families are really destroyed, aren't they? There's no support systems that used to be in place. There was sort of some stability in some way, but we're so spread out, and it's been a trend for many years, but it's getting worse and worse, and people are turning to all the addictive substances to cope. And if you can instill in young people this desire for health and athleticism through dance and release of stress, even if they're not going to go far in dancing, but just the passion of releasing, and it's hugely beneficial. So you've got to look at the psychological side of it too. It's huge.
I want to say, I'm Delano. I'm recovering drug addict. I've been clean now for 18 months already.
Congratulations.
And that's what I'm looking, because I'm coming from an area where drugs is cool, Eldorado Park, where you become a millionaire by selling drugs, which is not the right way to go about it. Because now, I have brothers, I have kids that say, I'm going to be like that uncle. He drives this car, but he hasn't worked anything in his life. So you want to be like him, instead of being like your dad, waking up 5 o'clock in the morning, going to fix trains, stuff, going to go by people's houses, going to work for something. So that's what I'm looking at, like helping my players, which I became the coach now, teaching the boys not only football, teaching them not to pick up when life throws you a curveball, not to pick up a substance. So the aim is in Eldorado Park is people tell them to go to a facility which they call Senka, but it's an outpatient program. So if they tell me to go to an outpatient program, I'll go today. When I come back, I'll use it. So what I'm actually looking at is to create something where people can come there every day of their life, spend time there, read about addiction, read about this, look into things and see, okay, not only by telling you, here's your date, you have to come back. No, you can access anytime. You can come, it's like your home, your second home. When you feel like picking up, it's where you come knock. So,
I think, do you have some sort of also something written with regards to this? Because I think that would be the first step towards finding a solution to putting this together. So since it's your vision, I'll stretch my hand out and say you can contact me if you want to put something like that together. So I'll work with you to compile a document, because where you need to go, the next step is finding out what kind of budget you need to put this together, and then finding the right people to do that. So for me, I personally think that's an important course.
Yes, because in the area itself, if you go to people and say, give me your hand, let's hold hands, let's fight against this, they'll say we're in it. But tomorrow or the next day, they'll be sitting with the same person that's killing the community, having a party, having this, and they'll look at you like, you're idiot, you're stupid, you should be joining us. Which you know, because I've been there, I've sold drugs, I've seen what it does. People, they don't hate you, they don't love you, but you have to hate yourself for killing something so innocent. I mean, if you look if I look into everyone here, there's something special. So if you go out in the world, if you look into someone's eyes, you see something special. And that's what I always tell people, like, I've seen something in Eldorado Park. When people are high, they always put on sunglasses. You know? So I always tell someone, take off your sunglasses. I want to see something. So when you look into their eyes, that's where the power lies. So there's something you need to install. The small things in life. It goes deep. Yeah. It's like a tree. You first bow the roots, then comes the branch. So if the branch is not solid, there's nothing going to come out.
I think that is it. It's about pathways, creating pathways from the bottom to the top, like you're trying to do with the education. But understanding that there needs to be a foundation in the roots. And that is the vision of the community. The community has to be behind your vision, you know, and they can root it and anchor it for you. And hopefully you can even create job creation for people. Like we say, if you find people in the community who are passionate and help them to uplift their own community, and it keeps feeding back. There was an amazing project in the West Strand where people opened up a soup kitchen, and then eventually from that they started to know the community. They started to get parents involved in feeding the children that were unemployed. And then they started a project with litter where you got coupons. So if you went to collect litter bags and cleaned up your community, as you handed those in, you got coupons for the shops in the local community. And so there was none of the cash factor, because that's huge with drugs and things. You can't have cash flow. But people were then able to feed their families and from just being able to, you know, enter the community and support the community. So I think there's so much you can do as you go in there. If you explore actually understanding that community, it's stunning.
So, like I said, it starts from putting it together as a concept.
My question are, how many projects do you actually have in the Western Cape?
Western Cape, we don't have any. But we have members though. Yeah. What we start to will be the media campaign.
Okay. Because I did work on a project in the Western Cape where in District 6 we were scheduled to build a theatre there out of materials that are very unorthodox. I actually built the theatre out of shipping containers and made it into a place that children from around the area can come and visit, see the acts perform and such and such. I actually have a couple of pictures here on my phone. I want to see the finished project. Some pictures down there. You can just flip through it. Told me that shipping containers, there's insulation on the outside that you actually had to use like straw and clay, ram it together into wooden frames to put insulation on the fronts. So and then you make
the things you guys can think about.
What is the project called? What was the project called?
The theatre project. Yeah, like that kind of thing. I feel like is one of the things that you guys are also trying to accomplish. Right?
That's pretty big. Can I pass this around?
Yeah. Are there any other comments, questions?
You spoke about a writing team.
Yeah.
That is not yet established, right?
No.
That's what you're saying.
No.
Okay. I'm supposing it'll be under marketing.
It will need a lot of writers, especially with regards to content and being able to put that stuff out. So whenever there's a hand, it's always welcome.
We have Batambla already who's been writing most of our articles. But we need more people.
Just in terms of just getting our voice out there, I do have a friend. Her name's Maya Horrigan. She currently works for, she's the co-founder of an organization called Ingressive, and what they do is essentially connect America. I think I may have introduced, you may know her, Ndaba. What Ingressive does is essentially they try to connect African startups with American investors just for the moment. And what she also does, one of her part-time things, is she writes for Huffington Post. Now, Huffington Post, I'm not sure if you're aware of it here, but it's a fairly large publication in the US, and she's got her own column there. So I'm fairly certain I could convince her to write on our behalf, and then from there we could essentially link where the article goes thereafter, like read more, or if you want to know more, to the Africa Rising website, and hence slowly gain a larger and larger readership.
Can you ask a question about your articles? Is that about the voice of the African community, or is there something more to it that you're looking for?
I think from the starting point, my aim is just to try and find content that's already existing online before we actually start getting. I don't want to use the word professional, but I have to in this case, professional writers. So we'll still be building a team internally until we can get guys to actually write adequate content to put up online. So at the moment, we'll just probably be using RSS streams to get the same content that's already up on other websites, like I had made mention, and promote that through Africa Rising. That's going to be the first step.
Is it about what you actually?
It's about Africa. It's whatever.
Anything about Africa.
If there's a new construction project taking place in Kenya, we want people to know that, because that's where the name is from, Africa Rising. So regardless what it is, and it's something that we want people to know through our website, to let them know that, listen guys, Africa's not sleeping. There's big things taking place around the continent. So that's the first channel we're trying to do before we start getting our own columns and our own writers. So while we're building the team internally, to start writing our own content, we'll probably just be streaming content that's already live.
Because I actually write for a national magazine as well. And I would love to write.
You can come in and coach the interns, so I don't mind that. Since you just put yourself out there.
Because as a project as Growing Champions, we do a lot of work. And our project is constantly doing and creating things. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for us to write about what we're doing and what's happening.
Definitely is. I think what we'll do is probably closer to the dates, we'll probably have another sit-down session like this just for the marketing. And whoever wants to come in and, contribute, the doors will be wide open.
I have a question. Sorry, I'm late. In the Eastern Cape, you have projects in the Eastern Cape, right?
Yes.
Because I was thinking, I'm from somewhere close to Tata. My friends in all the higher learning institutions that are in the area, they think that there are no social activities available to students. And there's quite a lot of them. I think there's about 4. And they were just looking into becoming part of something that uplifts the community. So I was wondering if you need volunteers so I can give them a shout out to say, here's something you can be part of.
Definitely.
I think we need volunteers, especially for the project in Ghana, which will need a better number of people to put it off. I've already spoken to some people there as well.
We have a representative, Picolom's Kuno. He works with the Ndaba Mandela Museum most of the time, so that's where he's based. And I can give you his details. But we're also working with the museum actually because they also have a computer center that's not being utilized there. That was donated by CBC, which they never got up and running. They have 30 computers just sitting there collecting dust. So we've convinced them that, guys, we need to use this space. So the partnership has been done with Africa Horizon before we get our own resource center, because our center is about 2 kilometers, I guess, down the road from the museum. Where we're going to have a full-on, there's a hall, there's rooms for the library, for the computer center, where we'll have a whole lot of different activities, dancing, etc., etc. Definitely.
Well, some of them are already part of the Nelson Mandela Institute that's based in East London, at the University of Port.
Okay.
So they come down from Alice, so you can imagine they have to ship people all the way from the other side of the Eastern Cape to come and do work in Tata when there's actually the Walter Sisulu University in Tata. You can just get involved into the work.
Yeah.
So what they do is they do outside and inside classroom improvement at schools around the areas, and they usually have youth camps where they bring together young people and they just try and connect them from different backgrounds, trying to bridge that gap. And some of them don't have access to information, so they think, now I'm in matric, so there's nothing else for me to do. So now with students that are already at varsity, they actually give them information to say, hey, listen, you can do this, you can do that. So I think, the students that are in the Tata area also need to get involved, because it's just students from the other side of the Eastern Cape. So I don't think they know they've got access to that information, that there's something they can be part of.
Would that almost be like a mentorship? Program. I think mentorships are very important with whatever skill it is you have, whether it be science, whether it be accounting, whether it be dancing. Everybody needs someone that they can look up to. Even with regards to your drug rehab center, a mentorship, is a very, very big thing. And I think also equipping people with skills. Like with the dance, it would be nice for people to just dance, but I would actually like to get people in who have studied and can actually run a program where people actually become qualified and leave with their own certificates, so that when we come back to Joburg and they're still in Kunu, they can still carry on and start their own thing from that. So our skills development is also a big thing.
Another thing on that front, I think that universities are an incredible resource to tap in terms of human resources. People are very capable, people are very, they have time on their hands, and they are passionate, about a lot of things. Putting them in mentorships, putting them, just getting them involved in the community and say, there is an alternative. There are alternatives to, the neighborhood drug dealer, are alternatives to things like that. And as you said, I'm sure that a lot of them are trying to get involved.
Yeah, they are, because the only time they get to do something, I don't want to say it's pretty dry when it comes to social events and social upliftment activities. So what they do is they only know about Mandela Day, that they do their 67 minutes. It starts on Wednesday. So they're really trying to get something to do, and they always see these cheese kids things, but they only in Gauteng, so they really want something like that to be part of in the Eastern Cape, because
I think what we'll probably have to start off with generating some sort of database, being able to know who's where, so that when there's certain activities, we can actually tap into that exact area. So maybe on the website, I'll put up something where we can probably do a push HTML email to everybody out and say, look, if you know people who want to get involved in any way, give us your contact details via the website, and we'll register you according to where you are and according to what you do, and then we'll try and figure out, what activities we can start putting you into. But I think those type of things we'll start looking at next year as soon as we get all these things set up. But definitely, I think it starts from actually a database, knowing who's where, so that you can start, filtering that.
I mean, to facilitate the database, having something like this on a campus would be hugely beneficial. Just like having this, UCT or UJ. Just if you setting out, going to the school and saying, what, this is our project, this is what we're doing. Could we send out a mass email to your students, or could we just hold it in one of your buildings and say whoever comes through, and say
without falling into the marketing as well, the marketing program for next year, where we actually start doing these type of road trips, and we'll look into those next year.
I also had a meeting with ESCOM Student Development with SA. So I was talking to them about career guidance with all bursaries and everything that has to do with school and all. So they said they can dedicate maybe 5 bursaries, depending on our proposal as well. 5 bursaries per the province, and then also do maybe 2 camps a year.
Camps.
Yeah.
So where would they go?
Where, let's say, from grade 5 to 7, maybe beginning of the year they meet. Then we can go and talk to them about careers and all those things. And then another one, which is going to include from grade 10 to 12. But it's still under discussion. But they said as soon as we submit the proposal, they can sign it off. Maybe we can start as from next year.
I think this is a great way to be able to converse and get some of these suggestions up. But I think for follow up, like I said, I think that the website's a very good place for people to just go in and submit ideas and proposals. So most of the stuff everyone has talked about here, we'll probably create a portal online where you can just go up on the site and say, my name is this is the organization I represent, these are the ideas I would like to implement, and this is my views, and submit it. So once we have all those, we can now start to contacting you guys individually and seeing exactly how we can get involved in those.
Is there anyone else any other comments or questions?
From my side, if anyone guys want to help me on this for the infrastructure, please give me a shout. I already spoke to some companies that are really interested, but if anyone has got something to add on this, please. Especially that the part you were talking about, that we can engage them even to do these things by themselves. You get material, that's skills that you need.
Doesn't know how it would help you from Joburg. Do you know what I mean? This is
He's based in Joburg, so.
Sorry?
But you mean just for ideas and helping you to
companies or whatever. Wants to come up with
the team could be in Joburg and you implement somewhere else. So I mean, don't.
I'm not used to doing this trans-country thing.
It's a big country. Forget the country. What about the continent? So,
we did a project in KZN, but I was around it. The resources were coming from this side, but the project is done.
Okay. I'm so used to being there with my hands still there. Like, you know what I mean? So it's difficult. But I would definitely have to talk to you.
And Transnet on this one, they said they're really interested on giving us the desk and the whiteboards and smart board. There's a smart board where they link schools to schools, where if you teach math this side, in Joburg, they can see you. In other schools, they can see you. Or if the teacher is not there for that day, there's the teacher in other schools. The kids can also come to actually link with the other students. They said they can help us with them.
So one more thing that's very interesting. I cannot remember the company to save my life, but there was a very cool idea that people had, and it was to take damaged furniture, refurbish it for next to no money, and use that to improve infrastructure. If I find it, I'll definitely let you know. But for example, my mom went to these to refurbish her whole office. Initially, they gave there was the quote to furnish the office was something like 500,000, and they brought it down to less than 50. Like just by refurbishing things, refurbishing tables, like they got a bunch of chairs that were all the same, but they like they would be ripped and there would be stuff leaking out or whatever. And they just changed everything, made it all the same, the colors of the company, and then just put them in. It was incredible.
If we decrease the budget, that's important.
Is it already aimed at being off the grid in terms of power? Because I've heard of a couple of companies that have started up. Well, it's actually kind of similar to what you guys did, but they turn those crates, the shipping crates, into a house. Yeah, at the time I was reading up on what that project was doing, is they were turning them into houses. And they kept it off the grid by literally installing solar panels on the roof of all of these crates.
Is that the one in the Netherlands?
Yes, it actually is. Yeah, and essentially they turned crates into off the grid housing. And I mean, for one, you can literally run your lights. Not necessarily. I'm not sure about the smart board because that involves data. That's some level of cabling. But if you minimize that, I know a fair amount. I'll look into it myself. But I know a fair amount of companies that are looking to take things off the grid, just so that also they're no longer reliant on ESCOM entirely. Sorry, I got a little shit recently.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for coming. We're a bit haphazard this week. As you can see, we had a very bumpy start, and we don't even have any refreshments, but I assure you next time you come, it should be a lot smoother, and we'll start on time. And we'll use this as our meeting place, and we're going to have general meetings, like I said, starting in February every month. So we have much more better communication between ourselves and be able to pick up the momentum. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming up, and I hope everybody filled in their details here so we can send them follow-up information next week. I need to get ciao, guys. We'll speak on the email then, my brother.